We're going to speak Spanish and Portuguese. I'm going to ask the questions in Spanish, and let's speak slowly so we can understand one another. A general question for everyone. This panel is focused on the social pillar and social impact that companies can have in the communities they operate. How important is it for your companies, and in which aspects are you focusing? Because each one of you brings a specific aspect, companies that have focused on education, others that have worked in developing housing. So let's kick off with these general questions before we go into more specifics. Who would like to start? Tatiana. Good morning, everyone. First of all, it is a great pleasure to be present in yet another edition of the Alacero Summit, representing ArcelorMittal and the Foundation in this important and strategic panel, not only for the industry, but for our countries. The importance of companies investing both economically and socially on our population. We believe that the power of connection of our brands and the transformation of this ecosystem is huge. We're not just an employer brand, we are a developer, security support, and we bring well-being. And this is why we 35 years ago created the ArcelorMittal Foundation. We are a century-old country. We talk about ESG from the beginning. Innovation and sustainability have always been present in our history, but 35 years ago we created the foundation so that it could drive social investments for the Arcelor Group, and that it promoted the connection from our group with the relevant causes for citizenship and transformation of life for children and young people in Brazil. We chose three main pillars to work with. First one is education, second is sports, and third, culture. And we are very proud to say that we are present in 70 cities in Brazil, in 10 states. In the past 5 years, we invested 280 million reals on our projects, and 11 million people were impacted. And then briefly about each one of those. First, within sports, we support 16 sports modalities. We won an award last year, and we were among the 5 largest companies in Brazil that invest in sports. And we have lots of projects that make us proud. And we believe that investing in sport, we are bringing two things. First, supporting the development of athletes in the base, and second, improving the connection of children with schools. We have projects, trampoline gymnastics, where we have 9 people that went to the World Championship and are on the list of the best in the world. So we believe that we're transforming these lives through sports. When we talk about culture, we have almost 60 projects distributed around the country, and one of them is fun on stage, because it's the biggest program to create children's audience in Brazil. We've had 1 million spectators, and something that is very interesting of ArcelorMittal is that at the same time that we have our operations in the large centers and capitals, we're distributed in many territories in Brazil, and there are many cities where the only access to culture is through this project. And lastly, education. Education has always been one of our priorities, and we work on basic education. When you look at Brazil's position in the ranking for global competitiveness, we are 60 among 64. And in education, we have the worst position. So we believe that we need to constantly work within education, not only investing on children and young people, but also investing on the teachers. We believe that to change education, we need to invest in the teachers, and we will have opportunity here throughout the panel to bring a bit of our cases and how we have been doing all of this. Paulo? Good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for the invitation to being here with you on behalf of Alejandro and his team. It is a pleasure to be in this panel. I'm going to switch to Portuguese. Just an initial comment, I'm very happy to be here. We talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion yesterday and today, and I'm making here in a panel majority with the majority of women. So in the steel industry, this is very important. And when we talk about social work for Gerdau, it's happening from the beginning. We are a Latin American company. We're very proud to, it was created 122 years ago in Brazil with focus on people. Gustavo was mentioning culture a while ago, and culture is what moves us, our purpose. And in this reflection, in our cultural revolution we've been creating, we made a reflection some years ago about what's the role of Gerdau in society, what is the legacy we want to leave in society. And this is not just producing steel, generating jobs and so on, but what are going to leave after we retire or if we go on with our lives after work. And it's very clear that people are the center of all what we do in Gerdau. And when we look at people, we're not only looking at the people that work with us, but the people that are together with us. Yesterday at dinner, I had the opportunity of meeting a client and a supplier of Gerdau, one that participates in the DII program that we invited, a client of ours that set up an institute and using us as a benchmark. So being able to foster this within society and having people at the center. Gustavo mentioned about a number of people that did not have a roof over their heads last night in São Paulo. When I left here going to Grand Hyatt, I saw very people living under bridges here nearby. We cannot accept that. We cannot tolerate that. And this is the legacy that we want to leave from Gerdau, which is to eradicate these situations. That's why we chose for social work, answering your question, Carol, entrepreneurial education, housing, which is a thing that nobody was working with as a social agenda, and recycling, because this is what we know how to do. It is within our DNA at Gerdau to work with scrap dealers and so on. And this is what we've been working with. Our biggest conviction is this rationale. We don't want to be the largest company. We want to be the best company for the planet. This is the legacy that we want to leave. It's interesting to recap this idea. We don't want to be the biggest, we want to be the best, understanding that this is a crucial pillar to have this impact from the company. Erika, tell us a bit about your experience. Thank you, Carol, for coordinating this panel and for the invitation. We, as the Techint group, were the companies that at Tenar Stadium and Petrol, engineering and construction, who started 46 years ago in Latin America, especially with focus in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. And currently we are present in more than 20 countries. But always from the very beginning, we believed that we wanted to grow together with the community where our industrial plants are located. So anywhere where we have an industrial plant or a project for oil and gas or construction, we maintain that vision that started from our origins and then evolved that the industry and the community should grow together.
There's no success in an industry if the community doesn't grow together. So how we can do this through education. We have some investments. This year, 2023, we'll have an investment between the program for the programs of education and cultures and other projects of around $100,000 to focus on education in these communities, more than 70%, because we truly believe and are certain that the education is the only means that we have for development and progress for the children, for the youth in these communities, in order to maintain this long-term view of sustainability for the business and for the growth of the society around it. This has to be done together because education and our focus is on technical education to bring these values of rationality, consensus, a collective outlook to be able to build together. So we have an action, a social action focused on education. We have our technical schools, Roberto Roca, that started in 2013 in Argentina, the first school. Then the second school was started in Mexico, and now we are creating the school around Rio de Janeiro here in Brazil. And so we are very proud to have these schools become an agent of change because we want to provide equal opportunities. And like you said, we are working in the Latin American communities, and we need to look at, we have 1 in every 5 children in these low-income communities that actually finish school. And with these schools, we have 4 in 5 will go all the way in school to get their degrees. So we want to be the catalyst and the potentializers of education, but not only through the Roberto Roca technical schools. We have over 800 students being trained every year, but we also want to articulate and strengthen the education for the technical education system in more than 50 public schools around our communities in order to work together as a society to raise and elevate the quality of education in these communities. Always remember the commitment and merit of these children and youth, and that's why we see that over 3,000 students can follow this engineering path with us. And this is a long-term view for our educational programs that we have designed as private companies, but then were adapted to 20 countries, listening to what the community has to say and working with over 50 public schools in order to adapt our system to the local context and sharing this industrial culture. And this is very important for us because these are values that we always share as a group: transparency, the rationality, design, implement, and measure, because for us as engineers, we want to share this continuous improvement vision and mindset. Also, let me share another experience. It's a pleasure to be here on this panel and sharing these transformative experiences. The Vale Foundation exists to really transform the future of several communities and municipalities where Vale is present. We work to contribute to the social development of these towns and cities through these structuring programs in education, health, and income generation. So how this is done and how we believe that this will create a sustainable impact. We combine efforts between the public sector, private initiatives, several partners, also private partners, investing banks. So we have developed a strategy to strengthen public policies. We believe that the way to create continuity and impact is to strengthen public policies dealing with these topics. In education, we support education and literacy at the right age. We're working in over 50 municipalities. For health, we support the primary care, the primary care units around the municipalities with quality healthcare services. And with this, we are able to handle more than 80% of all of the healthcare issues. And then for income generation, we have initiatives to support entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship from women entrepreneurs. We also work with these incentivized resources, incentive laws. My colleague Tatiana also mentioned this. Vale today, and has been doing this for 3 years, we are the biggest investor in the legislation for sports. We support more than 110 municipalities with sports and educational projects via the Childhood and Adolescence Fund also is supported by us to provide development and support for these sports, and we use Pronoun and Pronas. These are two projects and national programs for healthcare. So we really believe that together with Vale, to complement several actions and programs, the foundation supports this great social ambition from Vale to contribute to create autonomous, resilient, independent communities with sustainable development. We have a huge challenge to actually work in scale and in depth, and that's why these partnerships are so important, to provide more breadth and reach for these projects. And that is our daily challenge with our partners, with organizations from civil society and from the government. It's very interesting what you said, and we hear the importance of the scaling the projects, not to say to be just a little drop in an ocean, but Luis, now it's your turn. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a huge joy for me to be here. I don't really know what to say here. I'm here representing the group. From the beginning, for 112 years, we are deeply committed to the agenda of social responsibility, especially in the communities where we operate. The strategy for Whirlpool in terms of ESG, in particular the social responsibility, is to support the actions for sustainable development. And our strategy starts from our view as a company, including to working on continuous improvement, and this means also improving the communities where we are present, and including environmental actions. We are working on diversity, education and innovation, environment, and healthcare. Now, let's get into the details of the project, but I start seeing some cross topics here, and I think that both Erika and Tatiana talked about the importance of training for technical work to integrate the companies and the communities in terms of education. What are the challenges that you find when you start talking about technical training to include these youth in the system? All right, we call it STEM at ArcelorMittal, but when we talk about education, what brings us together here on this panel? What is the question that we wish we can answer when we created this project that is so important for us? All of us here are from the industry, from the steel industry, and we know how important it is to have talents and skilled persons to face the challenges we have in our companies and in our country overall. So we started asking, where is this coming from? What can we do in these communities to accelerate this? And we started carrying out studies, not only in Brazil, but all over the world. And we came to an educational approach, very well known in the US and Europe. It's called a STEM, but we added arts. That's why we call it STEAM. And it's an educational approach encompassing knowledge and skills that are important for people in any area to reinforce us, to strengthen innovation, creativity, teamwork, logical thinking, the balance between hard and soft skills. And based on that, we started connecting with partners. We always talk about the importance of partnerships. We were talking about startups yesterday, but it's important to connect with strategic partners. So in Brazil, we started looking for people who were experts in these topics to become partners. And this was very much aligned with our global guidelines. We have these 10 guidelines for development, for sustainable development for global ArcelorMittal, and one of them is to train talented engineers and scientists for tomorrow. So our question was, what do we need to do to train? It's not good enough just to have openings for engineers. We need to be looking at the children. And that's when we thought about the STEAM project. We call it Leader STEAM. And this is just an initial program. But when we see the results from the last 2 years, they are extraordinary and make us extremely proud. So the STEAM program is working on basic education in training and in educating children to provoke and inspire children to think like this. And when we talk about the STEAM project, we really integrate diversity and inclusion because this is a priority for the company. And we've been talking a lot about this since the opening of the events today. And since we have the STEAM Girls program, where now we have 20,000 girls who received theater trucks to talk about these topics. And we work on training teachers. We conducted a survey in Brazil to identify that only 14% of educators actually knew about this approach. So in the last 2 years, we trained almost 10,000 educators, and we work in partnerships with public schools, almost 1,500 public schools all over Brazil. We have the STEAM League Award to motivate, to encourage, and recognize the initiatives in these areas. And we are also delivering infrastructure. We built 2 robotics and technology and science labs, and we are going to deliver 7 by middle of next year. So everything we want through the STEAM approach is to value and encourage these areas: sciences, engineering, maths, arts, and technology. And this is what we've been doing, and we are expanding our reach every year. In 2023, we had our first social partnership of ArcelorMittal. We're very proud of our foundation over 35 years ago, but this is something I heard from the colleagues. We believe that in order to transform and widen our reach, we need social partnerships. And we had a social partnership with Banco do Brasil. This is our first social partnership to triple the actions of ArcelorMittal in this educational approach comparing 22 to 23. So I hope that this panel inspires not only us, but everyone here, because I'm sure that when we do this together, when we look at these structural causes and education in discussion here, we can do much more. It's interesting what you said, Tatiana, because you're talking about the alliances, alliances with essential actors to scale the project. What are your challenges, Erika? Well, first I'd like to share the context a bit, because as steel industry and private companies, we need to know certain information and data on education in Latin America, because this is something we see every day. In Latin America, more than 40% of all business people here, all of us, have some difficulty to really hire technical staff to fill certain vacancies. And compared to Europe or Asia, they have about 10 to 12%. So this is the first context that comes from the previous step, which is the educational scenario in Latin America. And we can divide this in 3 topics. First, access to education for Latin American countries: Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, need to do good work to provide greater access to primary and secondary education. And we are at around 70% of students who are finishing secondary school, but it doesn't mean that those children who finish secondary school have the quality education they need to continue their university studies or to get hired for a formal job. This is what is interesting for us. So this is where, remember this number, because we have 70% of students in Latin America don't really have enough math skills. And this really triggers an educational crisis for us as an industry. So the context of having 70% of children without the math skills necessary and literacy skills shows us that we need to change as this educational system and as an industry, because we need to create alliances and partnerships to understand how the industry can support the educational system, because the industry is advancing at a very high speed, but our educational systems are looking backwards. They are still at the pace from 50 years ago. So we need to really work with our technical schools, with pilots, to share with more than 50 technical public schools in different ways. First of all, learning through projects. We need to we need to stop teaching theory to children, because we are not seeing good results with that. And we're going to focus our educational model through projects so that this is connected to their community and to the industry. On the other side, the development of social and emotional skills, which we call social skills, because we measure, we look, we assess, but the children from schools, the children at school are not receiving this type of training. So the focus on working per project and on developing the full potential of the children needs to be included in the project. And like Tatiana mentioned, teacher training needs to provide better quality education for new syllabus, new learning methodologies, and provide different spaces, because children can learn anywhere, not just in the classroom. They can learn from in the spaces within the schools, in the industry, from the community. So we believe that we can offer the view from the industry and from the world to work together with the educational system, looking at the future. Paulo, you were talking about the deficit of housing and what you saw here in Sao Paulo, but this could be happening in different cities around Latin America, where we see these terrible deficit of housing and the also basic dignity for people. Why did you choose to focus on this topic, and what is your project based on, and what are your challenges? Because I believe that this is also a project that requires alliances with regional and federal governments. That's perfect, Carol. When we look at this context, as Gustavo mentioned, he talked about the role of steel. Our product is the basis for developing society. Without steel, you will not have a developed society. So housing, infrastructure, everything requires steel, be it from the beams, from the briquettes. So the low-income public, the low-income people require our steel to build their houses. So I believe that we are part of the solution to these challenges, and that's why we created the project Reforma que Transforma, Reforms to Transform, to gain scale for Brazil, a continental-sized country with 250 million people, but we have 27 million families with very poor housing, like you see in Bogota, Lima, Buenos Aires, other capitals as well.
And we set up this project with an ambition that in 10 years we want to renovate more than 3,000 houses for more than 50,000 people in the 12 cities where we have mills. It is a public commitment that we took from day one. And part of this project consists in 3 big fronts. One is creating the ecosystem. We mentioned a bit, Caro, about bringing the public sector, but it's not only that, but all the actors that are part of this construction. It is the store that is a commercial partner of ours, the local worker in the territory, the engineer, the architect, bringing the technical aspects to these populations, and all the subsidies from the Gerdau team, both financially and also for project management. And it's worth mentioning that when we generate an impact on the house, we're not talking about housing only. We're talking about public health. Public hospitals in Brazil, the second biggest problem is children with breathing problems, which is caused by a house without thermal insulation, without proper flooring. So this is also about education and health. How can they study at home if they don't have light? It's around food safety. It is also about people's physical integrity. When we have issues with flooding, for example, think of one of our employees on a day, if it's raining, operating a machine and imagining that maybe when he comes home, his house is flooded. He won't be able to be focused or present to avoid any unsafe situation. So we understand that housing generates a very important impact, and we set up this ecosystem. Together with it, we have like a renovation kit. I can renovate a house in 7 days. We know that in Brazil, Latin America, we have challenges with time and timeline and cost. And we also set up a social debenture. It was the first case in Brazil of a company setting up a social debenture, a mechanism in the financial market to create a leveraging system for our project. It has a leverage of 2.5 times because the money goes back to the project. So we developed a mechanism also together with the financial market. So this is a bit of the context of our project. I can then share some figures with you. Yes, we're going to share some figures later. Pâmella, with what Paulo has developed, what is crucial, because the girls were talking about education for the work environment, but the Vale Foundation is also working about for example, the base, which is the literacy problem, because there, Latin America and Brazil have problems with populations with serious literacy problems. Can you share? Yeah, that's it, Carol. We look at literacy building because it is the education stage where there has been most investment in the past years, but the latest data still show us that 56% of children in second grade are still considered illiterate. And this deficit in literacy, they are carried over to basic education, high school, and also coming into the job market. So if we cannot solve that at the right age, we will take this impact further within all segments of education. So thinking about that, we developed a project called Literacy Trails in this big challenge that I mentioned of getting depth and scale. And we started implementing this project in 24 cities throughout the Carajás Railroad in the state of Maranhão. So they are extremely vulnerable with deficits of literacy and education that are much worse than the average of the country. And this project consists of in several lines of action in several segments, but strong investment in training educators. We have more than 5,000 teachers and managers working in this education process. More than 100,000 students in the states of Pará and Maranhão were present in 34 cities in these two states. And it brings what I think is the biggest edge of this initiative, the development of complementary teaching material that is totally drafted based on local culture. We listened to the specialists, and what happens in such a big country as ours is that literacy or any other segment in education, the literature is too much directed to the southeast, to Rio, São Paulo, and Minas. And when we go to Pará, to Maranhão, and to the hinterlands of the country, this vocabulary is not totally understood. So how can these kids get literate if they don't understand that word, they do not recognize that fruit? So we developed some booklets. They're booklets for first, second, and third grade that are fully directed to the local culture. The one from Maranhão brings local literature, local artists, local games. The same for the one in Pará. We expanded it to Rio de Janeiro, two cities. So each state and each city is going to see in that material their local culture reflected. And we developed 10 games, so that are also games directed to local culture. So they learn by playing. They bring the game to another class. They bring the game home to play with their parents. They bring the booklet home and take them back to the school. So it is actually a work that works with capacity building for teachers, which is crucial, capacity building for managers, public managers, school directors, and also everything, the playful aspects around literacy and education based on the understanding of local vocabulary. This literacy project is included within the educational program that is complemented with an active search to fight school exclusion. This was very made clear during the pandemic, and we wondered that we could have the best program with the best partners, but what is the use if the child is out of school? And in the pandemic, these figures became more alarming. So we started with this front to fight school exclusion. We started in some pilot cities, and we expanded it also as part of our umbrella program. And we also had in 1, 2 years striking data, but also satisfactory results. Gathering a group of cities we worked with, we managed to identify in 1 year around 15,000 children outside of school, and working with people directly within their homes, we managed to reinsert 13,600 students. So they are complementary fronts. It's a deep investment in literacy for these children, and also a strategic look for all the impacts for this child outside of school. The colleague mentioned what is involved within precarious housing. It is the same that is behind a child outside of school. In a family, it might result in family. In another family, it might be hunger. In another family, it might be income. So we say that it is an cross-sectorial work that works with education, where we strongly act, but we start also feeding everything that is around the situation of a child outside of school. I can then talk a bit about income generation, but this is our literacy problem. It seems to me particularly interesting, which is it's not just investment and putting money in the programs, but above all, it is the strategic look, alliances, money, and the strategic look. Luis, can you share some of the projects in Whirlpool in Latin America? We have many projects in the company. The company from Mexico to Argentina, not only from the financial point of view around products and other things, but also through volunteer work from our collaborators in the assistance projects. The volunteer work from our collaborators not only shows, but the commitment of our teams with the company's philosophy. Of course, the projects are based in the pillars I mentioned in the beginning in our strategy. In Mexico, we have 600 volunteers a year with 10 projects, from projects with partnerships with the government to support in vaccination campaigns, educational projects, and we also have a global Whirlpool project, which is for housing, where we build and also renovate houses for people from low income. We work not only with houses, but also we renovate community centers. We paint them, we work on them, we renovate also community center outside of Buenos Aires that assist around 200 families. We work with educational programs, especially vulnerable young people, building capacity of them in new technology and digital technology so they can get inserted in the workplace. Some examples in Brazil, the project that gives us a lot of pride is the project for women that helps women entrepreneurs. We have also another housing project where we renovated many houses in São Paulo and also supported the environment. 50 of our employees this year went to a community in Manaus, and they removed around 2.5 tons of waste, supporting also support people with disabilities, with volunteer work. We support the basketball team in Rio Claro and the swimming team in Joinville. Whirlpool continues to invest in developing our philosophy and also investing with financial resources. I think this year we're at around 80 million reals in investment from the company. Sorry? Tati, you were the first plant director. Tell us a bit how it impacted your career and the direction that it gives to social impact. Okay, it is. It's with a lot of pride, but at the same time, when I talk about this, people ask me a lot. I was the first woman to be an industrial director in the steel industry in 2020. This is a bit disturbing as well. That's why within our company, for the past 5 years, we've been working strongly. We made several commitments with affirmative goals, and we're very proud to say that within our trainees programs, many times we have a higher number of women than men, because we have been trying to change this reality, because we know that in our country, if you don't do anything to accelerate this process, this will be solved in 200 years. And that's why when we talk about our social work, we connect it with diversity, because we always have actions directed towards women. As I mentioned, one of those actions from the Liga Steam, the STEAM League, is directed to girls, because we believe it shouldn't only work with young people. It is girls from 6 to 17 years of age, where we're bringing success stories. I had the opportunity to do this a couple of times, of talking to the daughters of our employees and to the communities and public schools, and we invite leaders from our territories to do that. So besides sharing the stories, there were 20,000 girls. Of course, we're just in the beginning. As I mentioned, our goal in 2023 is to increase this work threefold and then continue with our commitments for the next 5 years and increase this reach. But all we want is that these 20,000 girls, that they believe that they can do anything. We have one example here of one person, as you mentioned in the beginning. I've worked in this company for 23 years. I chose to study engineering when I was 16, and I chose to join this industry. So I know I've always been working in operation, so we feel in our own skin the power and the fragilities of these communities. That's why we have this special look at girls, because we believe we have this role of boosting all of that. Pâmella, you also have a woman entrepreneur program. My voice is back. I was a bit concerned. Pâmella, you also give focus to that. It's interesting what Tatiana was saying, because she said, I took the initiative, but of course, someone encourages this initiative. So what is this program about? This program is a very beautiful story. It's called the Women's Network in the state of Maranhão. Vale has a passenger and cargo train along that railway through Pará and Maranhão. And this train has been around for a long time. And for each stop, there many women in the community selling their products in trays every time the train stopped. They were called the tray women. And in 2014, Vale modernizes that train, includes air conditioner and changes that, so the windows were closed. So they could not offer their products to the passengers through their windows. So the Vale Foundation gathers these women from many different cities alongside the railroad, and we started to work with an entrepreneurship program with these women of starting to organize them in a network within their products. So that's what we call the Women's Network. Many of these products are made from babaçu coconut, so they work in the field collecting the product from that nut that can be derived into so many products and foods. But this network is so powerful today that they mentioned a quality seal. They sell to governments, the private initiative. They manage to export products. So it's a shame we don't have pictures here, but if we look at the before and after, it is actually an image of women that were in a situation of extreme social vulnerability to an organized, powerful group with a lot of income increase. Paulo, you were talking about a process of involving the community. I go back to what Luis was saying, that seems very powerful to me, talking about internal volunteer work and how the employees can participate in the projects that drive the companies. How does it work at Gerdau? I'm going to answer your question talking about Eduardo. Eduardo is a collaborator of Gerdau in the state of Minas Gerais. He's been working for 8 years in the maintenance of the steel shop. In March last year, during very strong rains, there was a landslide. There was 1.5 meter of mud within his home, and him and the two daughters and the wife had to leave through the kitchen window, not to suffer while they were sleeping. When we saw that happen, and it happens in Latin America due to climate change and so on, we understood that the program should also have a special attention to the employee. And when we saw Eduardo's colleagues mobilizing and saying that we want to work, then we said, no, let's bring the renovation projects there. 2 weeks later, Eduardo and his family were back in their home. So when you talk about taking care of people and have people at the center, it is also about how we also look at our own collaborator as a beneficiary for our project. So Eduardo is one example of the 39 employees that had their house renovated by Gerdau. Besides those benefited, we had 40 groups of volunteer people that mobilized more than 600 people. Among all the volunteers, all the first line here at Gerdau worked as volunteers in the team building work last year and helped renovating houses in a community we're located in the state of Minas. So the employee can be also a volunteer, but also a beneficiary, and then the voluntary that helps with improvements. Just to bring some figures to you, which we're very proud of, in a bit more than 1 year in this project, we renovated more than 1,300 houses in Brazil. So we're delivering 2 houses a day within this project. We've generated more than 5 million reais in local economy through the labor that we hire. We only hire labor from the territory, and we only buy locally for the materials. So it's a secondary impact to generate in these cities. All of them are medium to large cities, metropolitan regions, for example. So there's a very important second impact. But looking at that collaborator and understanding that they are part of everything that we do was crucial to understand Eduardo's story and to bring this with us in the past year and a half. Remember, that the QR code on the screen is for your questions. Please ask the team to give me the tablet because I don't think we have more time and I want to ask your questions.
But before, Luis, I'd like to ask you, you talked about the Consulate of Women. So about this initiative, we talk a lot about the role of women and expanding the role of women. And Paulo, I really enjoy being on a panel with mostly women. So what are the internal transformation processes of the company for this mentoring and tutorship for this program? Thank you for your question, because here in Brazil, we're very proud of this program and we're very passionate about it. The Consulate for Women is a social project, and that's why we call it that. And it's really a support to small business women. And we've been doing it for 21 years and helping more than 38,000 women, and the results are amazing. These are small companies, entrepreneurships, and we train entrepreneuring women and follow them up and help them implement their businesses and the business management tools from market positioning, pricing, purchasing management to improve their profitability. And the result is not only financial, it's not only monetary, but the growth of these women is amazing. The growth of these entrepreneurs is amazing. And we've also seen a transformation because many of these women didn't believe in themselves. And how this attitude of yes, I can be successful, I can grow, changes dramatically. And it's really comforting for us to see this impact on society. There are some indicators, some statistics from the program. Knowing that most of these small business women are heads of the household, and most of them reinvest their profit in the company. They want to help and give better lives to their children. So this has a lot more reach than the business itself. So 80% of women continue with their businesses, and because they continue investing and implementing the tools they learned from us, they not only improved and grew their business during that process, but also during the following years, they grew their business, they grew their activities, and improved their livelihoods. We are so proud that last year we launched a series of videos on YouTube called Todo Dia, Every Day is the Day, for women telling their experiences, sharing their experience. And this year, for the International Women's Day, we're launching a book with these very experiences. And the intention is to have this multiplying effect to affect many more women. But we have 38,000, but we could have many more. So we want to continue working on these initiatives. Well, we have several interesting questions coming in, and I just wanted you to talk about, in general terms, for transformation. What do you think you have to do for the educational systems, because we have a very dynamic working market, and what do we need from the educational system? Because you said that our systems are working on the curriculums and syllabuses from 50 years ago. All right. Now, I just wanted to talk about the equity and diversity topics, because these are extremely important. Because in today's world, this is what is required, both from the companies and the educational systems. All companies have diversity politics with mentorships, with tutoring, with maternal leaves for industrial plants, and this also needs to be adapted to the educational systems. For example, in our Roberto Roca Technical School, we have 40% of students, women, children, girls, that come from their homes with their fathers, with their brothers, And they hear this, why are you in technical schools? This is not a place for women in Mexico and Brazil. But supporting the children, supporting the girls since a very young age is paramount for education in sciences. We have 15 public primary schools where we start encouraging the STEM education for girls so that from a very early age they can become interested in the technical education. And this has been an ongoing project for 10 years. And in the long term, we see that how children in Monterrey, in Veracruz, in Argentina, in Campina and Santa Cruz near Rio, how they start realizing that they never thought about doing that, but during their teenage years, they start saying they want to be scientists, they want to be engineers, and they're enrolling in technical schools. Some are already in high schools dreaming about becoming engineers. So first we need to work together to have this sustainable and consensual long-term view. It might seem like a miracle because long-term for us would be a year, but education requires this long-term view for sustainable practices to support children to have access to high school education for for engineering, sciences, and on the other hand, technical education is also important, but looking at how we're teaching connected to specific projects, because when we see a 50% dropout rate from children because they simply don't believe in education, we want to engage them in projects connected to their community, doing something for the community, and then we can recover those children to reconnect them by working and as a team. I think we need to have equal opportunities for everyone to grow, focusing on the university and working in long-term alliances. The Q&A is really interesting because we have a repeated question here with a lot of votes, with many, many votes. Is there any program or a specific focus in your companies around the elderly or including 60-plus people in your workforce? Would you like to? This is a recurring, this is a repeated question in our Q&A here. It's a dangerous question because we see a lot of heads nodding here. At Gerdau, we can mention two fronts. One, from the diversity and inclusion area, we've been working on this ageism issue, and we have a specific management to handle this topic. So how can we include these people with a lot of knowledge and life experiences that are different? And we've been seeing a lot of young people coming into the company. So the more diverse our workforce, the more ability to deliver we have. And we have also two social projects. We support the Elderly Fund in Brazil to allow us to also direct some of our tax incentives to the elderly projects where in the cities where Gerdau operates. So one is a social project, and the other is an inclusion and diversity. Sometimes this is upskilling or reskilling, so you don't lose valuable talents that really can capitalize their experiences, but can also train them in these new skills. I think that when we think about the companies of the group, we have a very long diversity journey, not only gender diversity, but the diversity regarding all the different skills we have, and especially the technical side of things. We see some magic happening when the plant tutors that are usually 50, 60 plus, although they retire, we rehire them to include them to be tutors of the young people coming in who are in the last year of high school, because the combination of their knowledge, their know-how, from a person who has 40, 50 years experience at the plant with the dynamic of the youth, because sometimes it's very hard to sit still and listen. So this dynamic is like is like a father-son, father-daughter relationship. And in Brazil, we're really launching this in practice. When we see the combination between the plant tutors getting the students in from their technical high schools, it's like they treat them like their fathers who are going to help them train in that skill. So this is a very wealthy, very rich relationship. Luis, would you like to add something? Yeah, very quickly. I expect people don't, of the communication guys don't really kill me, but we want the participation of retired people. We have many of these because together with our volunteers, they can develop technologies and products to help fulfill our needs for our products, and especially for the third world countries. And it's extremely comforting and extremely rewarding because the level of passion and intention when they were 70 years old, working hard every day, because their return has nothing to do with financial aspects, but spiritual rewards is essential for them. Would you like to add something? This is a very interesting topic, and there are a lot of questions around this, and also the challenge of training or retraining someone who has huge experience. We always ask ourselves this because, but what's nice about this is that we're all working on this and discussing this every day. We're always asking ourselves, what else do we need to do? And for our diversity and inclusion area, this was created 4 years ago. We started asking ourselves that very question. So now, both on the social side, I have some examples, and in the work we've been doing to value our talent, we try to connect these experienced people. We have specific programs. We have this concept of the godfather or godmother. Everybody who comes into ArcelorMittal have their godfather or godmother to value these people who have been there for a long time, many of them 60 plus, and many of them working just like a teenager to. So we've been connecting many of these initiatives, be it in the entry programs or with the more experienced people. And in social projects, we always ask ourselves how to value diversity and inclusion. So we have Transform and Inform, where we train and develop people to generate income, and we provide this training also to the 50, 60 plus people who didn't have any income before. And I had the chance to develop these people. I was there, I visited, and these are women, 50, 60 plus, who didn't have any work and now are seeing their lives transformed through social projects. So we can all do more, and we want to continue asking ourselves that to really boost our transformations. So in our final minutes, I also have another Q&A question but I want to take a deeper dive in this. They're asking how to avoid just the simple servicing. You talked about the strategic view. So how can you work to avoid this in the public sector, also when working in alliances with them and partnerships with them? I can start. I always say that we need to work on the urgency and emergency without losing focus on the sustainable and strategic legacy. So the servicing, or this welfare services, was just something that came, for example, from COVID. That was an urgency and emergency. Hunger is an emergency. But we need to understand what we want to do, what we want to transform. So we're very much focused on we want to do. We want basic quality education. We want quality healthcare in the municipalities. We want autonomous communities, and we want to get people. Pull people out of extreme poverty. But we can't close our eyes to the pandemics, to public authorities. So we always need to have this balance. And when you have a specific guidance and a focus that is very clear and well organized, this conversation with the government becomes very natural. They do want to have this support for public policies. They want to strengthen public policies and transform the reality in their municipality. So we've been able to do this very satisfactorily. Paulo, did you do something about this? And Erika, I think that what Pâmella said is very important, to think about the strategic view, but not be taken over by urgency. Well, our communities have several demands, and the public systems also have many requests. What's most difficult for the companies is to say no, because we need to maintain focus to have an impact. I think this is the most important point, to try to define a strategy and with a strategic view, with a long-term look, and this requires certain development, certain design to keep this project alive and see some evolution. But we have some urgencies like hurricanes, earthquakes, COVID, that require a very coordinated action with the government, like we've done, without losing sight of the results we want for the community. In our case, for education, we did articulate with public schools, with the Ministry of Education, but always remembering what is our focus: technical education, education to design global projects for local implementation. When these agreements are made with the communities and the different systems, we start, I believe it becomes easier. You need to, Paulo, this concept of maintaining focus for you, working on materials and housing solutions. For example, there might be an extreme situation where you need to assist, when you need to provide assistance, but the focus is important, right? I agree. Focus is extremely important, and also maybe one of our takeaways from the pandemic is the power of the networks. During the pandemic, we had to become part of the solution as a company, to work with the municipalities, federal and state governments, to actually serve the population and assist the population quickly. And we believe that this network, where you have the private sector from the management standpoint, sometimes an easier funding solution. And on the other hand, you have the government, which is the legal manager for hospitals and public schools. And just to give you two success cases that is very clear for us. In the first year of the pandemic, we approved and delivered a hospital in 30 days to São Paulo with Albert Einstein Hospital and the mayor of São Paulo. So private hospital, private companies, plus the municipality. And now, and the hospital is still working, still up and running in the neighborhood of Emboimirim. And then with the Town Music Festival, plus with the municipality of São Paulo, we recovered a favela in the center of São Paulo. So the power of the private sector and the third sector and the public sector, we can go further. Thank you very much, everyone. Big hand of applause.